It's really so much to go through. It is you. You have this fairy tale, and she just brings in everything. She brings in is humanly important. I mean, it's something that to me is, and they're all revelations, things I didn't know before. One thing I was going to say too, Gary, on that. One thing I really discovered in my active imaginations is within me there is a body, an ego, and a soul. And then those go with me everywhere. They're separate entities. And then in the body there's all kinds of little elves and brownies in each part of your body. I mean, is the foot the same as your heart, or the stomach the same as your eyes? I mean, those are all little gods in you. But anyway, so now we're going to go back to what we skipped in chapter 8, and then we'll start up in chapter or lecture 9. So now just remember this, and this was very interesting. My wife as well, that what she says, that a woman, or the feminine principle, really, the principle, their ultimate convictions are in the realm of love and its problems. They find enlightenment there. They don't find it through thinking. They find enlightenment through love and relatedness and the feeling function. In other words, the stars, the constellations, can only be assimilated and integrated, not through concepts and thinking, which is the masculine way, but through love and its problems, and feeling and relatedness and eros. And this was what Lillian Fry Rohn said about Jung, that if he had been a woman, he would have talked far, far more about love and trying to, and taking all of these concepts and what do they mean in the love realm, in the relatedness realm, in the feeling realm. Where Jung, and he didn't do it on purpose, was more interested in spiritus, logos, thinking, and those aspects of differentiating and integrating. But anyway, now in science, we talked about all these women who were with Jung. In science, and I think she means in psychology, really, in Jungian psychology, she can be more detached. Change is not so monumental. This is why in the past, she says there were sorrel mysticas, heteras, geishas, these femme in spirit who would work with a man through the creative play attitude. Take his stars and combine them with the creative play attitude. Now, this is really how Jung developed the psychological types, was with Tony Wolff, Carrie Baines, Sabrina Spielrein actually helped to some extent. So she's the priestess, seeress. A woman can sniff the wind and tell you what the weather will be. The feminine too. Now, in this case, the daughter, the heroine, has to bring back into the human community something which had previously been in it, and it's her bewitched brothers. Now, what we're going to talk about here is the human way, okay? And what is the human way? I mean, what is the difference between human shirts and swan shirts? And we're going to find out human shirts have nothing to do with ego. There's something that have more to do with the I thou. and with being real and whole. And so the task is to be fulfilled in her, the way she is going to rescue her bewitched brothers is by going up in a tree and neither talking nor laughing for 6 years and sewing starflower shirts. So now the starflower shirts are going to counteract the swan shirts by which she can redeem her brother. So the idea is the swan shirts are an enchantment over life and has come over life. And these swan garments and wolf skins, we all wear these. And these are called the mask or the persona or the skin or the garment under which you hide and you can become enchanted by. You can appear as you are, or you can appear differently than you are based on the persona you show the world. You know, the naked truth is the idea at the bottom of many mystical practices. Inanna, was trying to find the naked truth, take you down to the place where the stone of wisdom is and where there's no artifice. And there's this wonderful thing Jesus says when he sees Nathanael coming, behold, here is a man in whom there is no guile. He says, it's just this person who has gotten rid of all his swan shirts. There is, there's this. Now, there is a swan shirt. This persona aspect. This is the king of Norway. And his son. His name's Harold. And NPR one time was doing a piece about him, and they called him up on his phone, and this is the guy that answered. He doesn't have a secretary. He answers his own phone, So he's one of these guys who has this official role, but he doesn't take it very seriously. Here's his father. This is King Olaf. Took the bus everywhere. Here he's giving his ticket to the ticket taker. So you can appear as you are or differently based on the persona, and the naked truth is this unenchanted aspect of us. This is really going to get good too about the human way, the way one manifests to other humans. People sometimes feel, and I feel this too, that we are just a vague mass of thoughts and actions. Just this vague mass of thoughts and actions, and so it is a difficult task to humanly express who we are. And Gerhard Dorn says it's more. Hi, Angelique and Carlos, and a couple others came in. I think Dawn and Dahlia. Yeah, okay. Just getting started here, but so it's difficult to express humanly who we are because we don't know ourselves. Okay? We're just this vague mass of thoughts and actions. This is the problem. You can't express who you are. And Gerhard Dorn said it was more important to know not who you are, but what you are. What are you is a far more enlightening question than who are you. Now, she says, but you will find certain introverts who think it's your job to be clever enough to guess who I am. I'm not going to tell you. It's your job to guess who I am. So, you just have to they don't ever say anything, my father had some guy working for him, and he always used to say, he says, he doesn't talk much, but he's funny just the same. And so anyway, these such people live beneath swan shirts. They have no means by which they can express what they fear, like, or think of the other human being. Now, this is the problem we all have. So she's going to really flesh this out. When you cannot express yourself of what you fear, like, or think of the other human being in a humanly adequate manner, and that means if you do it, it loses its wickedness, its sting, and its poison. Now, you cannot express to what you fear, like, or think of the other human being in a humanly adequate manner if it possesses any wickedness, sting, or poison, or any aggressiveness. So she says, so when you're wrapped up, it's because if it has any of that, you're wrapped up in affect, you're possessed, and you cannot express humanly the inner core. So first you must be differentiated and integrated before you can express this basic content. Now we're talking about this swan shirt when they're allied with being possessed by the affect. So taking away the swan shirts and bringing back the human shape, we need to express ourselves in a humanly adequate manner to children, to parents, to spouses, to analysts, to patients. Can the expression of what we feel and who we are come out humanly? Or is it going to be full of wickedness, sting, and poison when it comes out? This is a problem. I talked about this with my wife yesterday. It's just it's an art to do this. If in a human way someone can say that he does not like this or that, and it can be expressed decently, then only an inhuman person would not accept it, without emotion, because it would not have the wickedness, sting, or poison in it. Now, but she says that this is very subtle, because you can write down, if you feel aggressive, she says you can write down your aggressiveness and don't express it, and then read it nicely and humanly. But she says while you're reading it, your voice is going to drop at certain points, and one can still sense the aggressiveness is still there. So what's the human shirt? The human shirt, according to her, is the one that you are able to express yourself without wickedness, sting, or poison. So the affect below, when you try to express yourself decently, but you haven't dealt with the inner affect, whoever hears what you say, since you haven't dealt with the affect within yourself, is going to feel inhumanly attacked because you're coming at them in swan shirts. And the effect is overcome only when the depths are humanized. It doesn't help to humanize the surface. So one's resistance need to be humanized down to the very physical vibration of the body and its inner voices. One cannot just pretend to be polite because the aggressiveness still shows through. The affect will make the affect that has not been dealt with is going to be sensed as aggressiveness or attack. So this is the the atmosphere of the swan or raven shirts when they are filled with unconscious emotion. So the humanization of such archetypal dynamisms is an important aspect of individuation, for it means integration, becoming conscious of the emotions and affects deep within and dealing with them deep within. Because if you don't deal with them deep within, then they're going to come out with wickedness, sting, and poison. So now the person comes back into their human shape. This is a redemption motif you'll find everywhere. So everyone we see in human shapes are not human. They have they put on a human shirt, a star flower shirt. See, what's a star flower shirt? It's one that is human because it possesses both the relatedness and the illumination. So one thing what was it that he who understands everything can forgive everything. That's kind of the stars and the flowers. He who understands everything forgives everything, no matter what happens. He sees it from a different point of view. So now that's I just thought that was an important part of what she said. It just is taking this little tale and telling it's got so much human in it. Now, sewing the star shirts means working for many years in deepest introversion and concentration in order to find the way to let these irrational conscious contents in the swan shirts, which are really in her were the undifferentiated animus, reappear, these irrational unconscious contents to reappear in human life in a way that does not shock or disintegrate the conscious world, because they're also the creative aspect. They're also the bread bringers, but they can also be the ones full of wickedness, poison, and sting. But the way that they can come into life is through many years of deepest introversion and concentration in order to become conscious of them, to have a relationship with them. So it's a creative task. What was negative affect, remains afterward a reasonable statement of your position, whether it differs with mine or not. And so sometimes animus possession can be recognized, but sometimes at the bottom of one's criticism or resistance is a true statement of oneself, but we can't adequately express it. So where one can just agree to differ from the other person, the separation from the collective affect and its contagious effect is an aspect of individuation. So, if you're mad at someone or hate someone, you should bring it out into the open and become conscious of it yourself, deal with it yourself, and then you can deal with the other person. So, and this is the aspect too of not dehumanizing other people. Our adversary, we dehumanize them. We project swan shirts or some other shirt on them. So the aspect of putting on a human shirt is that you see every human being that you comes to humanly. There is no one that you see you don't dehumanize. And it's an enormous task, but it's the essence of cultural evolution, she said, is to make make everything human in that way, sort of in the way of the I thou Now that was just that little bit of chapter 8 that we skipped. And I wanted to, I just thought it was, I don't know, it just seemed to me very enlightening to me because, I'm not very good at that myself. The word, now we're going to go to talk about the constellation aspect too, that it comes from the word stellar and star. It's a vague concept where we experience exciting news. We say, now the problem has been constellated. An aspect of the unconscious has been stirred. It comes up in the form of synchronistic events on the outside. And at that point, we know something has happened, something has occurred. Now, or it can come up in dreams. A woman has a dream where she's threatened by waves of the sea or a threatening lion. But she tells her analyst her only complaint currently is that she's bored and has headaches. And but we can say that there's in the dream, the unconscious has just announced that there is an archetypal emotional formation constellated, but it is not yet constellated in her life. So nothing might happen for months, but underlying this, we have the feeling that the tremendous libido that we saw in the dream of the threatening lion has constellated in the unconscious, but it's not yet constellated in outer life. So then one day, a charming man turns up and asks this woman to go out and have a drink with him. Her headache gets better. She's not dreaming of lions anymore. She starts to dream of burglars. And so this thing's constellated in outer life. So we always knew that she was looking out the window for adventure. Something wanted to create heat, conflict, and adventure. The problem of the sea, hitherto latent, has become constellated. Now, this is the idea of the stars in the star flower show, okay, is constellating the inner latent, hitherto latent unconscious contents that are important in her, that they become manifest in outer life. But they can only do it through flowers, through the feeling and related function, because she will not find enlightenment except through she's not going to find it through thinking and concept. Now, this is the feminine principle, by the way. It's not all not the phenomenal woman. The feminine principle is not going to be able to take the constellation of the stars and form her own enlightenment without the flowers there too. So the stars need to be accompanied by the flowers. We're going to find this too when she goes to the sun and the moon, and neither one can help her. So she has to go to the stars. She has to go to Venus, and Venus is the one who can help her here, who's the goddess of love. Now, anyway, that is the event of her was ahead of her and far away. And when the earthquake comes, it's constellated. There's no order in there is an order in the constellation. The archetype implies order, arrangement, pattern. And from these, we can see what is the thing driving at. The idea of the star flower shirt is that we are going to take the boys and we are going to remove their swan shirts after 6 years of not talking and living in a tree and making star flower shirts. When we put them on the adolescent boy within us, then now we have brought them out of the what turned out to be the glass castle and brought them into giving them human shape. But it take many years of not talking or laughing, living in a tree, and sewing starflower shirts. So that's the idea. Now, this is sort of an idea of analysis too, of how analysis works. So anyway, it comes from astrology, the word constellation, and it is an early attempt to describe synchronicity with the help or by watching synchronistic events in the sky. Well, we watch synchronistic events in our dreams. There are constellations within us. The constellation within us are the different motifs that appear in dreams. And if you were conscientious about it, put them all together, they will form a pattern and an order, and they are driving at something. So the star map, and so is the dream map, is a beautiful mixture of order and disorder. It has regular events and irregular events, sunrise, moon phases, comets, eclipses, astrological ages. And behind the word constellation is a great mystery. And one knows approximately what it means, but never in full. To make a shirt with star flowers means something paradoxical. She's sewing the shirts with the purpose of redeeming the swans from their animal shape. She wants to give them a human way of expression. But to do this, she uses an archetypal constellation, a star, which seems very inhuman. So the shirts are a paradox. By the use of archetypal constellations, you help these swan boys to be humanly expressed. Okay, so when we interpret a dream or myth properly, we amplify the material with constellated motifs, other archetypal motifs, other dreams that we've had. Or that's why we study mythology too. We use other archetypal motifs, such as the star shirt. So the star shirt is really a symbol for the archetypal motifs that we are going to use to amplify and interpret the animal aspect of our swan brothers, the adolescent within her, and by which those contents, the adolescent boys, will lose their bird shape and assume human form. And so learning the stars, learning mythology, learning how to amplify dreams helps us to know and have enough knowledge in order to sew our star shirts for our own unconscious contents. So that's an aspect that we all need to do. We all need to be making starflower shirts to throw over our dreams, Now she makes the shirts while sitting in a tree, which, in primordial times was where all the early humans slept, it's a refuge from animals at night. And the trees have the basic idea of being above the ground and free from the animal side. And the trees, or the climbing of the tree, has the meaning of approaching heaven. It's similar to going to the top of a mountain, to going there to converse with the gods and the ghosts who are opposed to the sky. Now, she talks about a couple examples of the Siberian shamans would climb up a birch tree, and then the initiates would, and then the older shaman would go up into a higher tree as if that was heaven, and on a rope would pass down his drums and his apron, his shaman apron, and all the things he would need to be a shaman. And then after he comes down from the tree, he has all these things now that came from heaven, and his rope, which is connected with heaven. And so from then on, everywhere he goes, he takes the rope with him. And I don't know if you guys remember this girl. You remember her? Her name was Julia Butterfly Hill, and she lived in a tree for 2 years. It was this was about 20 years ago. But she lived in a tree, in a redwood tree, so she was very, very high up. That was about 20 years ago. This is her today. Seems like she turned out all right. But anyway, we're going to talk about what it means to live in a tree. He tells about the shaman, and then she also says that when he comes down, he's in connection with and tied to the process of individuation and inner psychological growth from spending this time in the tree. And then there is, she tells about a 17-year-old boy. This really happened to one of our friends, who was a psychotic. He was sent to his uncle's farm to try to work off his psychological problems. And the first thing he does is crawls up in a tree, and he won't come down. And his uncle says, just leave him there. If he wants to sit in a tree, let him, And so he sat there for 2 weeks, and he finally comes down. And so he had enough, and he comes down, and he's, he comes down, and he's completely reasonable. The upset was over, and the boy saved himself by following the archetypal impulse and had the luck of understanding relatives. And so he went through his own shaman initiation. He probably had visions and from the collective unconscious, and it was a remarkable experience. But if he hadn't done it, he would probably have been hospitalized. So this archetype of going up in the tree for an initiation is very much alive in us. He had just enough instinct to cure himself and keep himself from madness by sitting in a tree. And it means a retreat from reality and retiring to the realms of spirits, of introversion and concentration. This was the word religare, which Jung said was the meaning of religion, which meant taking careful attention to, giving careful attention to. So when, it was like this, somebody said, who is that shape-shifting God that they caught, and had to hold on to until he told them the secret of getting off the island where there was no winds, what gods he had offended. And Aniela Yaffe said Jung did that with every unconscious content that came to it. He would grab it and hold it and wouldn't let it go until it told them who they are, what they were doing here, where they came from, and what they had to tell him, So anyway, there is that. She goes on about the trees, that it is the tree has a maternal quality. It is the advantage is it is a second womb, and out of which rebirth can take place, and something from which we can then fall like a fruit. So it represents a process of spiritual rebirth. the children come from trees in many myths, and that children build nests and play in trees, and it opens up the magical world. Well, that's the whole idea of, the imaginal world is to expand consciousness. So the idea there is that it opens up the magical world, it expands consciousness, and yet at the same time, it's going away from contact with the outer world. So it's an aspect of introversion, second womb introversion, and the religare, careful attention to the contents of the unconscious. So now during the time that heroine is up the tree, she can't speak or laugh. So now this is another interesting motif of not speaking or saying any laughing. So now this is also important in the state of incubation. Now remember, everything we're talking about here, I don't want to get lost. Everything we're talking about here is how do we redeem the swan boys and the raven boys that are within her? How do we give them human shirts? We could go up trees, we sew starflower shirts, and now in this case we don't speak or laugh. So the rule in incubation is to remain silent. To put one's finger over one's mouth implies a secret about which one should keep silence. So mystical silence is the conscious variation of something that is less positive when it happens to one unconsciously. In other words, the things that happen to us, we need to mold them over. Now we're going to talk about how this happens in art, because I think Tim has had some of these experiences. When you have this overwhelming latent content of the unconscious constellates, and it often makes the person dumb, and it can't be expressed. And it is an Alisand touches an emotional complex, can't be spoken about anymore. And he can't speak about it. And it doesn't mean he's lacks goodwill. It's just the essential things can't come out for 5 or 6 years. Now, she talks about this in art. Everyone who's done now here's the problem. Why it can't be brought out is because why we need silence about it is because of the nothing but aspect. Now, I've experienced this in active imagination. I'm going down into to the place I go, and somebody is accompanying me now. And who is it? It's the person that says, "Oh, this is nothing but, what are you doing? This is total nonsense. How come you're doing this?" And I have to ask the unconscious, I don't like that guy. Now, guy is me. I don't like that guy. How can you tell me how to get rid of that guy? And what she says, the anima says, she says, well, ask him, who does he think he is? She says, who made this body you have here? Who gave you the vision in your eyes? And the ability to think and the ability to talk and to make your heart pump. Did he, the ego, do that? So what really is the meaning of his skepticism? He's this one who's standing on a whale fishing for minnows. That's really what he's doing. He's this little monkey who's riding on this back of this really divine being, the body, the human body. It's absolutely divine. There's no explanation for it. It is beyond, there are no words or systems of thought that can contain boundless life. It's inexplicable. There is no way to explain it. And yet the ego, the king ego, thinks it knows better. But the idea is in when the writer does not show or discuss, or the artist does not show or discuss what he is working on, he knows the work is in a delicate state of growth. So is these unconscious contents. Unintentional comments can be harmful and rob us of the courage to follow through on that path. Now, this, Tim, you expressed by putting the marine boots outside your studio. I mean, before Tim would start his artwork, he would take a pair of marine boots, put them outside of the studio, and close the door. So now that that harmful voice is outside, you know. So this has to do with the 6 years of not talking. So anything they say can destroy the process that she's doing of sitting in the tree, introverting through concentration, sewing her starflower shirts. She's leading a sort of a double life. Now, she is discovered by the king. He takes her home, he marries her, and she has children, but she still won't speak. And though she's been the queen and gone back into human life, she goes on working on the redemption of her animus, the adolescent boys within her. And in keeping to that process in silence, she leads a double life. She's a queen, but she secretly has another occupation about which nobody knows. And this double life it involves misunderstandings and misinterpretations by everybody. You know, this is something we all do. You know, I mean, people see us and just start making all this small talk, a small chat with us, and they think we are, you know, just this ordinary human being. But no. He says, how can we in our day have the idea of Christ in ourselves, and yet have to make a living? That means the starflower shirts. We have the idea of the starflower shirts in ourselves, the adolescent boys that need to be redeemed. And yet we have to make a living as a bookkeeper or a queen. And we have to meet Miss Meyer or the king and marry them, have children, and be obliged to live there. And imagine at an evening at the corner tavern as Mr. So-and-so, a glass of beer in front of him, and in his heart, the outrageous claim, I am the Son of God. You know, now this was expressed in, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the figure who was called Christ Pantocrator. There was this is a painting of Christ Pantocrator. I'm probably mispronouncing that. But if you take this painting and you take the left side and double it, and the right side and double it, you know, you get this. You know, oops, this is not. And that is Mr. So-and-so, and then that being in that being in within, who we are working on by sewing our starflower shirts, you know, and yet we have to be you know, we're married and have children, you know, and so we're leading this double life. And anyway, this motif often comes up of the wicked stepmother who takes her children away and accuses her of murdering them, and this happens a lot. It's a situation that she says is not brought about by, can be brought about by anything, by the negative mother, or the negative animus in the negative mother, or the negative father, or the negative anima in the father, and can have different archetypal reasons. So the situation is very similar, and the double life problem of the queen is in a way connected with the king. So the dominant of collective consciousness is also listening to the wicked mother who persecutes her. And so now although the woman is productive and had fulfilled her feminine life, there is something going on behind the scenes. That means, Linda Fearsdale would often work with patients, women patients. She was one of Jung's really great students. And she said that this was back in the 1920s, 1930s. So it's a different time then, where there wasn't so much birth control availability. And whenever she said she'd often have patients who would, at that time, it wasn't unusual to have 5 or 6 children, but she'd have a patient who would be experiencing a really, a problem that she couldn't get over. Her dreams are troubled, and everything. And so suddenly she tells Linda, she says, well, I'll just have another baby. That'll keep me busy for 3 or 4 years. So I'll be fine. And what Linda Fears David told her says, no, you need to bring forth your moon child. You need to give birth to the moon child. That is what you're going to be in the same place 3 or 4 years ago that you are now, unless you bring forth the moon child. So so she's slowly driven into complete isolation. Her heroic deed is in keeping silent, which really means that she is not betraying the inner task. The pressure in this situation does not succeed in forcing her to disclose her inner task, despite of its threat to her life. She endures the misunderstandings of those around her. And her highest endeavor is applied to keeping her religious secret. And it's today, people would tell her she's clinging to a neurotic idea, but to her, it is her religious loyalty to her inner task. And that's what it feels like inwardly. But since others talk about it as a neurosis, and it's an animus possession, there might be something in her that puts the same question. And to have that innermost instinctive assuredness that tells you what is what, it's extremely difficult to stay silent. That means to remain loyal to the task when one is torn by doubts, by the wicked stepmother getting her to almost be burned at the stake. So the woman, let's see, we don't have much time left here. Let's see if we can go to something that's got a good close to it. The idea of, why don't we quickly just talk about the, when she does the broken wing real quick. The girl, after 6 years, she remains loyal. The solution comes, and synchronistically, the 6 years are over, the swans come, So she throws the star floor shirts out over them and redeems them and liberates from the state. But one sleeve she had not finished. So now this was the youngest brother, and she didn't finish the left sleeve. And so he has a swan's wing instead of a left arm. Now, I'm kind of stealing this photo, I think. I don't know what I did with it, but anyway, it is the boy. Oh, I know this. Let's see. Okay, let's see here. All right. Well, I had it, but oh yeah, here it is. I stole this from a zine, but here's the boy with, you can see his star shirt with the swans, and then he has the swan wing, and so anyway, what does it mean to have a swan wing? The youngest brother in her, the newest aspect of her, the growing thing within her, and his left arm is a swan's wing. And Goethe says, something of the heavens remains within us, awkward to carry. That's from Faust. And in the Atman, the divine spirit, the form that was out of creation, in contrast to Brahman, the god, who's was the creator god, though they're both the same. The Atman is symbolized by a swan hovering over the sea with one leg in the sea and the other leg out of the water. And if the swan pulls out the second leg, the world would cease to exist. So Maya, the illusion of the world, goes on because Atman does not pull out the second leg. So 3/4 of this swan brother is in the world, but one wing is in the other world. Had the left wing been finished and become an arm, there would be no problems, no questions left over, but that's not the way the unconscious works. The remaining wing is like a religious and spiritual question mark, which can never be integrated and should never be, for then something would be too clear and too settled. One would know all about it, and that would be the wasteland. There would be no renewing spring. So this is her renewing spring. When interpreting unconscious material, one has kind of conscious about it. And, if you interpret it too superficially, one feels that one didn't get the depth or the essence. But even if you interpret it thoroughly, one comes to the point where it seems enough, even though you still haven't given the fullest explanation. So the archetypal basis remains a mystery, which the best interpretations cannot solve. And it will always have a wing in the other world, which can never quite be pulled into this one. And this is what Jung once told. If you ever have read this book by Margaret Ostrowski Sachs, it's just a collection of things that she wrote down that Jung said, which is just amazing. It's like reading the Gospel of Thomas. But he told her the complete human being is never visible. He's indescribable, always a mystical experience. And this is the whole idea, I think, too, is that we think of ourselves as just this vague mass of thoughts and expressions. And we in dreams, it's expressed by the fact that we live in a house that doesn't belong to us. We don't know the owner. He's unknown. We're trying to drive a car from the back seat. Who's driving this car? Who's really driving this car? And the aspect, in active imagination is that the body is far deeper than we are, and and it's mute, but as Gary says shows us in Qigong, it's not really mute. You know, it expresses itself very well when you know how to express it. And then you also have the soul, you know, there too, who was born with you the same day you were born. This other consciousness within you comes into being too. And it all occupies this strange vessel of the body, you know. And anyway, that I think we're Gary, so why don't we just, we'll just go around the room and, you know, make any comments you want about anything. Go ahead.
Sure. You know, before we get started though, you know, I know you put out that email that said for, you know, the people that are over in Europe, I thought I'd get a quick show of hands of people that would actually be interested if we did the One Dream group on Saturday morning instead of Wednesday evening, which puts it in the middle of the night in Europe. So if you
3
do like
a.m. for Doggy.
yeah, pretty tough. So if you do a show of hands, then we'll have like an idea of people interested in the Dream group. If it wasn't, you know, so if it was like, you know, 4 or 5 on Saturday evening rather than, you know, in the middle of the night.
It'd be like, I think it would be like about let's see, about 3 it'd be about maybe 3 p.m. in the UK, and it would be you know, 5 p.m. I believe in Vilnius, Dahlia. So on Saturday. I still got a day job, so it's
You need
hard
to
for
give
me.
that up.
Yeah, I will at some point. Okay. Yeah, well, why don't we'll just try that.
All right,
We'll
great.
do it on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Chicago time, and then anybody that wants to attend, and then we do this, keep the other Monday one at 7 p.m. Chicago time. Okay.
Great. Okay, well, I'm going to go with the way things reshuffled on my screen. Camilla, would you like to go first?
About comments or?
Yeah, just on the material covered. And if you don't have any comments, that's fine too. But if something struck you, you know, then, you know, feel free to say something.
Well, I will pass today, I think.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, Camilla, you always have interesting things to say.
And you
So,
could speak up later, you know, you could add, you know,
Yeah.
and this goes for anyone. Like if someone says something and you just want to jump right in
Yeah.
because, you know, something
Jump
hits you,
in.
then just, you know, don't wait for me, just jump right in.
Thank
Tim,
you.
yeah, Tim, would you like to comment?
Boy, it's such rich material. I just, you know, Craig mentioned the marine boots, and I don't know if other people know this story, but this came out of my experience many years ago when I was working in the art world, and I had a manager that was really selling a lot of my stuff, and I really had this increasing feeling that there was this enormous pressure on me to do a certain thing to kind of satisfy the commercial world. And I finally recognized that voice was coming from inside me. And so I recognized that there are these two aspects of my character that were really at war with each other and wanted to kill each other. And so I went to a therapist just to work on this issue. And she was able to get me to see that the two of them have to talk to each other. There's no way around it. So I went through this process of dialoguing between the two aspects. And one I identify as the monk, which is the artistic character. And the other I called the drill sergeant, which is always complaining, always saying it's not good enough, always saying the stuff that Craig was saying, you know, what the hell are you doing? Why don't you spend your time doing something more productive? And so I was able to get the two to speak to each other. And finally, I realized that the monk was trying to drive the drill sergeant out like out into the world somewhere else because he couldn't kill him. And he finally realized, okay, I've got to find something for this bastard to do. So he said, okay, instead of criticizing my life, why don't you come with me and you stand outside the door and keep the rest of the world at bay while I do my work. And so the two of them were able to come to this pretty good arrangement. And this was actualized by my finding a couple of pairs of army boots, and sticking them outside the studio door as a guard against the world. And that has been a really great coming to consciousness for me. And it just reminds me how important it is to do some kind of ritual to help incorporate an unconscious revelation. And like in dream work, it's really helpful to not only interpret the dream, but then to come up with some physical thing you can do to kind of memorialize it or honor it. And I'm such a lazy guy, I hardly ever do that. And I really feel bad about it. But this is a good example of one way to do something like that. And God darn it, it really works for me. It's been a real blessing for me.
Oh,
I
that
love it.
story
You know,
about
what a-
100 times.
Yeah, great personification, which I think is something that we always need to, bring more of into our lives. Dahlia, would you like to go next?
Okay, I just have few memories which came to my mind. Talking about that one sleeve, like swan sleeve, the shirt which was not finished. And actually it made me think about a small part in the movie, in the series of the Peaky Blinders, when they have, I think, I hope I won't spoil the drama, but I think there was a moment when the gypsies, the like few main characters, they had to be hanged. The sentence was to be like executed, and at the last second they were redeemed. Like they were so close, they like just a second and they had to be hanged, dead. And I think it was very interesting how that it stayed with them, actually, that feeling they were so close to something that they had to come back to life again and to live and do their business in the gypsy ways and like dark ways. But I know it struck me a lot, like when maybe that's it. So that one sleeve as I know, as a memory which stays with you forever, or like for the rest of the living life. Yeah, it's something like very, how to say, I need some words, but yeah, I think I cannot articulate more, but that's something very strong and very like on the border between two worlds. That's very, very interesting for me. So if I'll have some other ideas, I will share.
Great, well, thank you.
Great, I
Angelique,
liked it.
would you like to say anything?
Yes, a couple of things passed my mind. About the staying up the tree, I was thinking that it seems, although risky for the boy she presents, the case she presents with the boy, it seems that it feels to me a situation in which one has to drink straight from the source with no intermediates. There's no interpreter, if you like. There's no analyst. There's no erotic partner to project on. There's no one between one and the Godhead or the unconscious. So that was one thing that I was thinking. And another with the remaining silence. I was also thinking, because it's strongly related to mysteries, that it seems that in the journey, there's a time needed for things to cook alchemically, possibly, in order to be transformed. And it seems that this cooking kind of thing needs to take place in a vessel where projections, especially through the verbal, need to be minimal for some reason. It seems that a quite big part of, from silent retreats, not that I have ever taken part in a silent retreat, but it seems that friends who have taken part, have shared with me that after a couple of days, the contents of the unconscious, they seem to intensify. They seem, and the effects of the unconscious content seem to maximize the way they affect the psyche. So, and I guess in the ancient times it was that too. You couldn't share. In a way, you release the magic of the thing if you spread. And also you make it lighter for your psyche. Because by bringing up words, you just break the spell. Whereas the mysteries want you to boil with it and stay with it. And they want you to be strongly affected by it. So they used to tie the eyes, close the mouth, and work with the olfactory functions. And neuropsychology says that the olfactory pathways seem to be the most ancient in the brain. They are the most animalic. They come from the animalic realm, from the deeper parts of the brain. So they were working with the smell, but you couldn't speak and you couldn't see. So, and from people who get blind at some point in their life, we know that there is plasticity in the brain. So very quickly, the damaged areas have as a result that the brain starts refining and improving dramatically other areas in the brain. So people who are blinded, they can hear very, very well. So the brain works very quickly into recompensating. So this staying silent is a neurological as well as a psychological one with great effects, I guess.
Wow, yeah, just fascinating. I can just feel that too, because I think in some of this, it's the question of how do you stay on the right side of the brain, because you go over to the left and you just lose it. It's just gone. So yeah, great insight.
Some Buddhist person in Europe, he's a European, who they call him the happiest man in the world because from his meditation, he reshaped his brain. I mean, they could see it on heat maps.
Wow. Diane.
Oh, well, there's so many things. I don't know if I can get to them all, but first of all, I want to thank you, Gary, for the meditation. That was wonderful. I've done a lot of yoga nidra, and I agree with you. Sometimes when it's trying to help you, when you do a sleep yoga nidra, that it just tries to bore you. But that one you did, that's on Calm. I have that app on my phone. I'd never listened to it. How wonderful that was. That's just beautiful. I thought of my grandchildren and how that would be good for them because they always fall asleep with lullabies, and that as they mature, to deepen their inner world for them. So that was wonderful. Thank you for that. And there's so many things. The first thing that you talked about dealing inwardly with your affect from the unconscious is something that I've learned very much that I need to do in my life most recently. And that really strengthens that desire for me. And I think I'll be able to work through it, to do it more consciously as a result of reading this fairy tale. You too. The initiation of the boys through the shamans and sitting in trees, and we're working in another group on the alchemy and the sublimatio, and how going up to heaven and bringing things down with ladders and towers, that really solidified that work for me too. And about the silent period, being silent when you're working on creative works. I'm a writer, and I need to be better about that in my life as a writer. Sometimes I want to share, I feel like as a female, and being related, that that I need to relate some of those things with friends. But I have to keep them very close friends, because it does affect your creative ability to work when you have some kind of negative input from the outside. And that reminds me in writing about, I think that Tim's method of putting that outside with the army boots was very good, and I'll have to find my own method. But I know I have practiced that by, in writing we call it, and in any storytelling or hearing any story, it's called, suspending judgment. And but to physically have an act, a ritual to do like Tim does, I think that would be helpful for me, because although as I get older, I've gotten older, I'm less susceptible to that criticism. But still, I think it would be helpful. And just so many things, and this struck a chord with me. And having read it, and thank you, Azine, for the image of that you sent to Craig with the one wing in the unconscious, because that also, and also, Craig, the way you made the parallel, well, actually, Louise von Franz did it, the parallel between the Atman and the Brahman, so that both of those symbols, images, will be helpful for me in that. Just so much. Thank you. Thank you.
I was going to say too, if anybody wants those MP3s, just send Craig an email, and we'll put them in Dropbox or whatever, so that they're available.
Great.
Azine?
Hello, everybody. So about talking and not talking, I live like a monk, and most of days I do not talk to anybody, maybe sometimes more than a week or even more. And when I talk on the phone, it really drains my energy. Like after talking on the phone, I have to lay down. If I talk too much, it's really, really drains my energy. And I remember something that Jung always also said, that talking, when he talks, he was in Bollinger, and when he talks, he has to do a couple of days to heal from talking. Even if the talk is just an interesting subject, but it has certain weight on your being. So when you're there and connected to unconscious, yeah, it's hard. It can get hard. And I have a couple of questions and notes that I wrote here about the little brother with the wing. I think it's implying to a certain type of ego. I'm not sure if it's a porous ego, because porous ego is the ego that is able to receive from unconscious without suppression or something. But in this case, he's half human, half animal. So a part of him resides, is residing in unconscious. So it's kind of animal, human mentality, something in between, which is a very interesting state for me, to me. But I'm not sure what, I really like to work more on this little brother. I still don't know what the glass castle is, what the finger bone is and represents, especially in relation to Venus. I know that bone usually represents the essence of something, the essence of a human being, but I don't know about the finger bone, what it represents. And also the dwarf that opens the door. Dwarf usually represents a part of us that has not grown yet, suppressed and being small and not mature. I don't know what it is. And what is the castle? The glass castle. Castle should be kind of consciousness. And glass castle should be something clear, something that has been clarified. And it has to do with the animal consciousness, the state of being a bird with the brothers. But these things I really don't know what they mean. That's me.
Thank you. I loved what you said about, you know, the talking. I find that too, you know, somehow it's, you know, they pull you into a relating, you know, it just doesn't feel like it's the essence, you know, and you feel a bit torn away.
Even physically it's hard to, and even the subject, even if the subject is like beautiful and conscious and there's exchange of energy, beautiful conversation, but it still drains your energy. So
You know what? She got that bone from Venus, you know, the star.
yeah.
And then she loses it, you know. And it is, so then she has to cut off her own little finger to replace the one that Venus gave her that she lost, you know. And what von Franz says about it is that it is her ego plots to to find love, for one thing. And the other thing is, she says that women would often come to analysis with ego plots. You know, if I get better, maybe this man will become more interested in me. And so she says that in chiromancy, I may be mispronouncing that, but the little finger represents Mercury, and so it represents the mercurial plotting ego plots, and she needs to sacrifice those if she wants to redeem the boys in the glass castle. Now, the dwarf is represents the creative. He's a miner, a smith, a jeweler. He kind of represents in almost all civilizations. The dwarf is this creative aspect, and they are also called dactyls, which means fingers, And now the glass castle is amazing because it represents, compare it with the iron or the stone castle or the wooden castle. They are real prisons, but the glass castle prison is one that you can see the problem, but you can't act. It's as if the glass wall came between us, So that, I experienced this before my mother died. I had this dream that they were going to transplant a tree in the front yard to the backyard. So they're going to take it from the flow of life to the backyard where there's no flow. And we could still see her, but now only through a pane of glass. So there's no human warmth. We can see, she's still going to be visible, but to us, but there's no human warmth or the tree.
That's interesting because I always think about consciousness and how humans tend to project their consciousness on plants, animals, objects. Like we constantly think that we put our thoughts into a cat's mind, like he must be thinking like that. And there was a book, I don't remember the name, but its name was Becoming Animal. And I was listening to the audio and it was really interesting. But even in that book, I could see that he was projecting human mind into being an animal. So this glass castle is really interesting because we may see animal, we may see their conscious, but we do not really have access to that. You know what I mean? So they're separated. They're different consciousness, and we're clueless what happens in a cat's mind.
Very good. Yeah, that's the little bit we got to go over next time, and then we'll start on the lecture 10. But what we have to cover is the finger and the finish the swan wing, the finger, and then the glass castle.
Marina, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's very interesting. Something about 6, 7 years seems kind of psychologically really important, because they say, or I've heard it said that, when a child is 6 or 7, it sort of comes to consciousness. That's it becomes aware of something. It leaves something and it enters something else. So I thought that was quite interesting. And as you were talking, the idea of the wing came to me as a building. You have a wing as a subsidiary of a centre. So not as a wing, but as a wing, another part. So that was that came from hearing you all speak, which was interesting. And the last point is to do with the silence and the alchemical connection to silence in terms of therapy. That as a therapist, the more silent you are, the more powerful the work somehow. You know, I have had situations where I've not said a word and people have left and said, oh, thank you so much. And I've been left thinking, oh, well, so there's something sort of, you know, in that as well, really. I just really like what you said, Craig, about something awkward to carry, something of the divine remains within us, but it's really awkward. And that made me think of the daemon that Hillman writes. So wonderful.
Great. You know, I really like what you just said too about the divine that remains, you know, it's within us is really awkward. And maybe that's why it's so susceptible to speech or anything else, because, you know, that would push it aside. But yeah, really interesting. Annette? Are you there, Annette?
Oh, hi. Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. I'm listening and taking it all in, and yeah, the importance of ritual and not to react from affect. That was more for me what came out of it. So thank you. Thank you.
Great. Avaxa? Is that pronounced correctly? Are you there, Avaxa?
I don't have anything to add, but
Okay.
and I'm the first time here, so I'm just listening to you. Thank you.
Sure. Carlos, do you have anything for us this time? Carlos? I'll go on to Charles. Charles, what have you got?
I don't really have anything in relation to what we discussed today, honestly. It can be hard for me to pay attention, to be honest, especially after, I mean, I'm always way too caffeinated. That doesn't help, but I had a really, really interesting dream last night that I remember in almost perfect detail. And I'm just happy that that happened. In it's like all the recent themes tied together in one dream, and with a little bit of kind of, it's like I understood at the end why I was having these total and complete emotional breakdowns in my dream. I understood why, like in the dream at the very end, and it was really I mean, it was simple. It's like, I'm doing this because I need to, I have to, and it suggested that it was all sourced from my childhood. The dream just spoke in such unbelievably clear detail. It was incredible. And just being able to recall every detail was just a really great gift to wake up to.
Well, it'd be very interesting to hear, especially now there's an image in one of Charles' dreams, which I was even going to mention in this little thing, is that the night and the moon were closing down on him, and the sun was going to be snuffed out. But this moon aspect was was the old witch, you know, or it was the one that did not bear children. It was barren. And so this barren feminine moon was closing in on the light of consciousness within him. And that was one of I think, at least a half a dozen instances that Charles has mentioned of his having a real, almost a complete meltdown in the dream, but then it doesn't have these outside the dream. It just only happens to the dream ego that there's this great cathartic release of emotion. Now, at that point, what it really, to me, is saying this, and I can't wait to hear your dream, Charles, is that's the only way the ego is going to give up being king. You know? It has to experience total loss. But anyway.
Great. Well, and Charles tends to have these just cinematic types of dreams.
Yes.
I'm pretty jealous. Do we have any follow-on comments from anyone?
Well, we can
Well, I
end
have a-
her. Yeah, go ahead.
I have something. So when a couple of you were talking, Tim and Azine, I think, it occurred to me that the wing, the connection with the unconscious, is sort of like, you know, personality number one, personality number two, and how that connection together, and how Tim said, you know, they need to be in conversation with each other. So I think that also will be very helpful to me, and I want to thank you for that. That's it. I do think that I'm very interested about cutting off the little finger too. And so we'll
Sacrifice.
expand on
Wait
that
till you-
later.
Yeah, wait till you hear that. It's just wonderful. That's why I say I can't really skip any of this, even though she's sort of, you know, keeps, I mean, every one of these little vignettes, you would never find anywhere else. No one would take the trouble to write about these topics other than in connection with this fairy tale. Gives her an opportunity to, and they're just revelations, every one of them. to me.
She is so brilliant. She's so brilliant.
Young told Barbara Hanna one time, he walks over to her and he says, you know she's a genius, don't you?
Yes, she is.
Definitely. Well, I guess we finish a little bit early.
Yeah, all right. Well, great. Okay, well, we'll finish it up next time and then start on lecture 10. And then Gary reminded me that if they're on the first Sunday in the month, it doesn't have to last for the whole session, that anyone who wants to share anything can share it. You know, what have you been working on? I mean, just to get a chance to just add color to everything we're doing. You know, if you just tell us what you're up to and what you're doing and what you're working on and what you would like to work on or whatever. But that would be the next, the 30th is the next session. So that would be, I think, the 6th, February 6th. So anyway, well, thank you, everyone. And it was, we'll keep going on this next time. And then we'll also talk about what book we want to do next. And I'll just give us a list of ones and we'll choose ones.
That's
Ones
what I
that
was
aren't-
thinking, that we should have a session thinking about it.
Yes, that's perfect.
I'm
Yeah, we
really
can-
interested in alchemy,
Yes.
and I think it's great. It's heavy work, you know, it's not easy. But if you can do it as a group, I think it's really, really good.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you 2 books. One is The Anatomy of the Psyche by
Yeah.
Edinger. Just goes through, you know, sublimatio,
That's great. Yeah.
calcificatio. I mean, it's just a wonderful sort of ingrains it into us.
It'd
And
be
then
nice
the
to do
other-
that book. I could give a lecture on that book. I've read
Yeah.
it so many times.
Yeah, which one was it, that was the real one that you read about 100 times? What was that?
Oh, coagulation.
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 Yeah, dissolve and coagulate, you know. It's a wonderful book and it's not that long. And then there is also, I think it's really fun to read just from, you know, the Spirit Mercurius or the Philosophical Tree or the introduction to the Golden Flower that are in those books, alchemical studies that Jung has. They're only 40, 50 pages, but they're just absolutely, I mean, the introduction to the Golden Flower is beautiful. But if you really want a good book, the best book on alchemy that I know of is by Jeffrey Raff, and it's called Alchemical Imagination. And because he just absolutely lives and breathes alchemy. And
Wow.
I'll send those out. But anyway, let's discuss it and we'll come to a consensus.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.